A lot of YouTubers can't live with AdSense alone, and that's why they need sponsorship. And this is when Justin comes and helps them get sponsorship. So Justin, tell us about yourself.
Thanks for having me, Nico. Yeah, so my name is Justin Moore. I'm the founder of Creator Wizard, and I help creators find and negotiate their dream sponsorships so that they stop leaving thousands on the table. I've been doing this for many years. My wife April and I have been full-time creators for over 8 years, and brand partnerships are a major way in which we have made income over the years for our family. And so I'm particularly well suited to teach other creators about this because I've also run an influencer marketing agency for about 7 years, helping bring brand partnerships to other creators as well. So I have kind of both perspectives, being a creator for many years, working with brands, but also kind of being behind the scenes in the room with a lot of brands and advertisers and helping understand why there's how to allocate, let's say, $500,000 of a marketing budget. So it's just a very different thing. And so that's the perspective that I bring to the content I create.
What was your inspiration to start doing all of this, like helping creators, and when you were doing content, what was like your inspiration?
Yeah, so I think from my perspective, my wife and I have had a lot of success over our career. And when you do this long enough, oftentimes you start thinking about what's next for you, right? Because we've been in this space for over a decade, and we've seen it all. We've been on every platform. We've worked with pretty much every brand. And so for me, it was about the next chapter. Like, what do I want to be my life's work and my legacy and so on. And so, I think it came from that initially, but also I just have seen so many mistakes being made from so many creators over the years, just, interacting with thousands of creators through my agency, and just helping friends on the side. And I just thought to myself, like, man, I need to make some YouTube videos to like help people, understand how to negotiate, understand how to interpret the terminology in this space. How do you price your brand deals? There's all these like kind of questions that are almost taboo, like not a lot of people talk about them, but I thought I would just make a few videos, and it took off beyond my wildest expectations. And so in the beginning, it was very much just kind of a passion project. Like, I'm just gonna make some YouTube videos and help a few people out, but it's really taken on a life of its own.
Yeah, a lot of creators have to figure out all this by themselves, and they go through like tons of mistakes, and, lose tons of money and tons of things. And yeah, so it's good that someone is there to guide them.
I'm trying.
How did you start helping people get sponsorships? How did they trust you, kind of?
Yeah, it's a good question. So in the beginning, I was just helping my friends. I've kind of developed a reputation over the years being someone who kind of knows how to negotiate well because I've run the agency. And so other creators would just kind of text me or DM me and be like, hey, I've got this kind of complicated negotiation. What should I do? What should I say? How much should I charge? What should I offer? This kind of thing. And I've always loved helping people with that kind of thing. I've recently realized that my superpower really is I can parachute into any negotiation, regardless of where you're at, whether you're at the beginning, whether you're in the middle, where you're kind of just at the very tail end of it. And I can know exactly what to say, exactly what to do, exactly what to offer, because I've just seen it all. We've done literally personally, we've done over 500 sponsorships, my wife and I, and then I've done over, thousands through my agency. And so I've just kind of seen it all. And so nothing really surprises me anymore. And so in the beginning, it was just kind of personal contacts, but then the credibility, there was definitely this shift where I started creating content around this topic, and people started following me who didn't know me from April Justin TV, which was our my wife and I's YouTube channel, and so they didn't know that I was Justin or April's husband or whatever. And so that was really the change, I would say, is that when people started reaching out to me, not really knowing my history of being in this space for 10 years and just knowing that I've been sharing advice around sponsorships. And so I started helping people. In the beginning, I didn't have courses, I wasn't coaching, I was just helping people for free in the DMs or via email, just because I love doing it. And it just very quickly became overwhelming. And so for me, the credibility just came from just a place of service and just wanting to help people in a pinch.
Would you say you learned negotiating because like you said, you've seen everything, or is there something else that helped you learn?
So I think definitely through experience, for sure. That's one of the, it's like pushing someone in a lake. It's you're gonna sink or swim. You gotta have to figure it out, right? So for sure, I learned most of, I would say, what I know. But I do think that I have been a student of negotiation psychology in general for many years. I've read every single book I can read about negotiation, about pricing psychology, about consumers, purchase behaviors, the art of advertising. And so it definitely has been a passion of mine for many years. And so I think it definitely came from also a lot of the frameworks and methodologies that I've read in various books and, interviews, podcasts, blog posts, all this stuff. So I have consumed a lot of information around this topic and kind of picked from the experts, so to speak, in terms of adapting what felt right for me and my wife and our own negotiation style and the deals that we were doing and so on. And so yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. It's a hybrid of the experience, but also being kind of a scholar of the subject.
You learn by doing it. You learn by actually like going and doing the actual thing. That's how you actually like learn, instead of like reading and like watching YouTube videos, stuff like that.
Right, exactly.
So there's been a video on this, but how do you know if a sponsorship email is a scam? How can you differentiate?
It's a great question. So it's actually a really big issue, especially for creators starting out, because there are scammers out there who will try to prey on your lack of experience working with brands. And so you'll get an email into your inbox, you put your email address in your bio or in your about page on your YouTube channel or something. And then, you'll start getting emails sometimes as you start getting larger. And sometimes the emails will look legitimate. That's the hard part, is like, it'll say, like Logitech, Logitech brand manager wants to partner with you. And then you're like, wow, this is exciting. And you get all, you get really, you're about to respond. And then you start looking a little bit closer. And there's a couple red flags. So like email address and the domain is almost always a dead giveaway. So if it says something like, Logitech brand manager at gmail.com, like they're not going to be using a Gmail if it's like a large brand or a large agency, right? So the domain should be legitimate. Other times it's very tricky because scammers will actually purchase domain names that look similar to a legitimate domain. So it'll say something like, Logitech-online.io or something crazy like that or something. And you'll be like, oh, that kind of looks like it. But then you go and you actually realize that, well, no, like Logitech's actual domain is like logitech.com or something, right? And so it's like, it's another, that's another tip. And then another, maybe a final one is if they're not identifying themselves by name, they'll just say, Team Logitech or something to sign off the email. Like they're not going to do that. They're going to say, hi, my name is John, or hi, my name is Wendy from Logitech. They'll sign up their email. They'll say I'm the marketing manager, or I'm an account executive at an agency or something. I never thought about that. Yeah, exactly. So they're not going to just say, oh, Team Logitech, and not like say their name. That's like another common scammer tactic. So it just, a lot of it comes down to just like trusting your gut. If it seems too good to be true, and it probably is. I
remember seeing like a scam, which was like a Google support, like YouTube scam. And it had like the youtube.com, like google.com, like email domain thing. And it was just like so believable. And I've seen like other scams that like have domain and everything. And it just looks so believable. Yeah. They're just like learning now.
You have to be really careful because, there are, it's kind of high stakes, because if you click the wrong link and provide access to your YouTube, they say, oh, we need to look at your analytics or something. And then you provide access to your YouTube channel and they take it over, right? And they put, crypto scams on it, or they try and scam your followers or so on. So it can be, or identity theft or whatever. So it can be pretty serious. You have to be mindful of that.
Yeah, definitely. Something else that's important is like knowing what the brand care about, so you can actually like get the sponsorship. So what do brands care about?
Yeah, so one of the core things that I teach, which is, I would say, probably a little bit surprising to most folks, which is that the things that most creators think brands care about, which is views and subscribers and
it's the logical thing, like
demographics. Yeah, like that's what you would think that they would mostly care about. And some do, for sure. Like definitely some do. That's like kind of their primary KPI or their key performance indicator. But in reality, one of the most valuable aspects of working with the creator is understanding, coming from your perspective, that this is a business transaction, right? And so they are hiring you to complete a task. Right. And so you have to treat that seriously. You have to treat that professionally. You have to communicate in a timely manner. If they say, hey, we need you to send in a draft of the content for us to review by this date, you send it in by that date. This is a business transaction, right? And the reason that that's so important is that you need to not think, as a creator, you need to not think about this deal as just a one and done type thing, right? Which is what a lot of creators think about. Oh, they're going to pay me $500. They're going to pay me $1,000, and then that's going to be awesome. And then I'll move on to the next brand, right? In reality, it's so much easier to forge a long-term relationship with the brand if you can illustrate to them on the very first deal that you are trustworthy, you're reliable, the content that you create is high quality, right? So it's like there's all these other aspects to like brand sponsorships and partnerships that most creators don't think about, and a lot of it has to do with just like doing what you say you're going to do, right? Turning it in on time, making sure that you hit every talking point. You're not including other like brands, competitive brands in the video. like things like this that like seem maybe not super obvious, but like, you know, you just put yourself in the brand's shoes and be like, okay, if this was my business, I was hiring a creator, what would I want them to say? How would I want them to act? You know, I want this to be timely and so on. So really what brands look for is a partner, not just a vendor or not just like a one-off relationship. They do want to forward long-term relationships, but it's you, the onus is on you as a creator to prove to them that you're worthy of that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and for example, back to the due date thing, like they probably have other creators working with them. So like, if you don't send a due date, it's like, it's your loss. If you don't send something in by the due date, it's your loss. The company's probably not losing because they probably have like another creator that might be bigger than you.
Totally. I mean, that's the other, you know, people always say, oh, it's so saturated on YouTube. There's so many creators. It's hard to stand out. Well, let me tell you this, even if that's the case, when it comes to working with brands, you can forge a very lucrative career and make a lot of money working with brands, even if you don't have the largest subscribership or the largest viewership, simply by being like, responsive, simply by being communicative when you work with brands, right? And so they'll go, oh, let's go back and hire Nico again because he was on time. You know, he did everything we asked him to do. And so, yeah, there might be someone who has 10 times the amount of followers but it takes them 5 days to respond to every email, and they hem and haw and give them a bunch of like, a hard time, like anytime they want edits on the content. So it's just like keeping that perspective when you work with brands is really important.
What are 5 mistakes a creator makes when they reach out to a brand? Okay,
let's see. 5 mistakes that creators make when they reach out to brands. No, number 1 is making their pitches super uninteresting. Hey, I'd love to collaborate with you. Let me know what you think. And then the brand is just like, okay, like I'm not, you're gonna make me do the work to figure out like how we should collaborate? No, like you as a creator need to be the one to put something in front of them that they can react to, they can get excited about. So that's the first mistake, is just thinking that, a lot of creators think like, oh, well, I don't want to pitch something that they wouldn't get excited about. Well, they're not gonna get excited if you just say, oh, let's collaborate, I love your brand, because every single other creator is saying that exact thing, right? And so
you have to be unique.
You have to be unique. You have to stand out, going back to that thing we were just talking about a second ago. And then point number 2 is sending brands their media kits in the initial pitch for 2 reasons. One, oftentimes creators will list their pricing in their media kit, and they'll be like, oh, okay, it's, $500 for an integrated video and $1,000 for a dedicated video and blah, 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 right? And how do you know whether the brand was gonna, might have been willing to pay you $5,000 or $10,000 or something like that, right? So until you actually can have a conversation with the brand about what they're trying to accomplish with this campaign, you should never, ever, ever provide any sort of pricing to the brand. And so
because you never know if they're gonna offer like 10 times more.
Yeah, you never know what they're trying to, and what you actually propose to them might change based on what they say they want most, right? Maybe they say, oh, we have always wanted to launch our own YouTube channel for our brand, right? And then maybe your pitch is, oh, well, I can create a series on your channel that I don't even post on mine, and it's actually gonna go on your YouTube channel. So that's gonna be priced totally differently than if you actually go live on your channel with the content, right? So, and then the other thing too is that, oftentimes people will send their media kits as a PDF, and often like a lot of brands or agencies have firewalls that prevent emails from unknown senders with attachments, right? They're like, oh, this looks like, spam or something, right? And so they may not even be seeing your email if you're attaching your media kit to some of these pitches you're doing. So, so that's definitely another error. Another error when it comes to like reaching out and pitching brands is not being interested or invested in the outcome. And the only thing that you care about is how much they're gonna pay you, right? And I think this is something that happens with a lot of creators, is they just get excited about the idea of like making money and working with the brand, but they don't actually take the time to say, okay, well, like, how can I make this a win for them? Are they trying to drive sales? Are they trying to drive downloads on their app? Are they trying to drive signups for their software program? Are they trying to whatever it is? And then you think to yourself, how can I make this the most successful campaign possible? Because that's the way in which they're gonna hire you again, right? That's the way that they're gonna recommend you to all their friends who work at other brands, right? I think not enough creators a lot of creators are just disinterested with the outcome of the brand because they think, oh, the brand's pockets are deep, they have these big budgets, I'm just like a small insignificant thing. And like, you'd be surprised, like, the amount of creators, the amount of influencers that brands could rely on and go back to over and over because the experience was so great is very small. So again, it comes back to like understanding that like, yes, you're a creator first, but you're also a consultant. You're actually helping them accomplish these larger term business objectives, and you have to think accordingly.
Yeah, I actually have a funny story about like the price thing. So I was editing a video for a company, and I was going to like offer them like $100, $200, because I was gonna be so happy with like $100. And I wasn't gonna say anything about the price because I wanted to see how much they were going to offer. And then they said $1,000, and I was like, okay, that's a lot more than I expected. And yeah, I said yes. And
good for you. That's awesome. How did you connect with that brand initially, or that company?
So I had reached out to this guy. I like loved this podcast. And then I asked him like podcast tapes, how can I get guests? And then he one day was looking for a editor for TikToks. So I like reached out to him, sent him like a editing reel I made in like 20 minutes, like right before sending it to him. And he loved it. Like, I don't know why he loved it or how. It was like really bad, but he loved it. And he just started getting me like clients from there, like randomly, like kept on connecting me with like companies, like edit videos for them. And yeah, that's like got connected through someone else.
Isn't it funny how that works out, right? You do good work for one person, and then they feel comfortable recommending you to others. And like, that's how it works when it comes to working with companies and working with brands, because most people, sadly to say, are not reliable. And so if you are, lots of business will come your way.
Definitely. So you were talking about media kits before. How can someone make the best media kit possible to send to brands?
Yeah, so the biggest mistake that most creators make when they create their media kits is they provide a bunch of uninteresting information that the brand already knows. So they say, oh, this is how many followers I have, and this is my audience, demographics, and this is like all the different places that I'm posting. Here's my biography. Most of that stuff is like probably accessible publicly on the internet, on your blog or on your about section on your YouTube channel or whatever. The media kit, the whole point of a media kit is to provide brands or advertisers information that they do not already have, that is not publicly accessible. So what this means is case studies and testimonials. How have you helped other brands achieve results? So your media kit is full of, hey, I partnered with this brand. This is what we did. Here were the results. Here's all the amazing things people said about it. Here is a testimonial from that brand or that client saying how amazing it was to work with me. That is what should be at the beginning of your media kit. Yes, you can still have that basic
like
information.
Social proof.
Yeah, it's social proof. It's exactly right. It's social proof showing that if this new brand were to hire you, that they'd have nothing to worry about because you're so awesome based on all these other, your track record of success. You can still include all of that other basic information about your followers and platforms you're on and all that stuff, but that's at the end of your media kit. That's not the beginning. Because if you send them a 20-page media kit, they're not going to read the whole thing. I know you hope they would, but they're probably going to read like 2 or 3 pages of it. They're just going to skim it. They want to make sure that hiring you is the right decision. They want to be able to cover their butts if something goes wrong, and they can show their bosses like, hey, like I did my research, right? And so it's just like, give them an excuse, or don't give them any sort of excuse to like wonder whether paying you this amount that you're asking for is going to be worth it. And so that's what case studies, testimonials, that is the most important thing you have in your media kit to illustrate to a brand that you're trustworthy.
Yeah, like social proof is so important, even with like podcasting. Like I always mention people I've interviewed before, and sometimes I change it depending on the person. Sometimes I go to like the people they follow and mention the people they follow. Oh, they know them, and like, yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, it's even more social proof.
I mean, let's say, how we got this interview. You interviewed my friend Jake from Creator Hooks, and he's a good friend of mine. And so, I was like, well, sure, I'll be on the podcast. If Jake was on it, I'll go on the podcast, right? Exactly. So it's like a lot of it comes down to just like, kind of casually name dropping, past guests or things like that. So it definitely works.
It definitely works. I've seen like videos of like sponsorships, stuff like that, and some of them say like offer like packages, like 3 videos for X amount of money. Do you think like packages are better than like just one video? Like, what do you think about that?
100%. I mean, it's one of the core things that I teach in my courses and my coaching is, even if the brand is asking you for just one video or some very basic set of deliverables, always, always, always offer packages, because what happens is that you illustrate to the brand that you're willing to do a lot more. Because what oftentimes happens is that brands are not just working with you, okay? They're probably working with 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 other influencers for this particular campaign. And what that often oftentimes means is that's 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 email threads, 50 contracts, 50 personalities that you have to deal with, right?
Yeah.
Which is a lot, right? And so when you say to them, hey, I can actually make 5 videos for you, in their head, even if it's gonna be more money for you, in their mind, they're like, oh, wow, I can hire Nico and he can do actually 5 times the amount of work that I expected. That just means that's 5 or 4 less contracts, 4 less people I have to manage, 4 less email threads, right? And
You
so
save them so much
you
time.
save them so much time, right? And so again, you're putting yourself into the brand's shoes, and how can you make their life easier? And making their life easier is making it a seamless experience for them to get the content that they need for this campaign.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like you're winning with money and they're winning with like saving time and promotion. So yeah.
Absolutely.
In your opinion, what should a smaller creator do, like a medium-sized creator and a big creator do? Hire someone to get sponsorships for them or do it themselves? Like what should a small, medium, and big creator do?
It's a great question actually, and it's one that I get a lot, because a lot of creators are just like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to learn this stuff. Like, let me just hire someone. Can I just find someone to like go out there and give me deals, and I'll give them a percentage, right? Like that's what everyone else wants to do. I just want to focus on videos or focus on my craft or whatever. And I am actually of the belief that it's very, very important that you actually learn this stuff and educate yourself around the business side of being a creator, especially when it comes to negotiations and partnering with whether it's brand or other entities, because you cannot just put blind faith or blind trust in someone that you don't even really know that well, because it's going to be impossible to know whether this deal that they're bringing you and recommending that you take is even a good deal. How are you going to know whether 500 or 5,000 is a good deal, right? How do you even know if like this particular brand that is wanting to partner with you, maybe you don't have any experience working with them, and your agent or your manager or whatever had some sort of sweetheart deal where he was getting a kickback from this brand just to get creators to accept these deals for a really low amount of money. So I believe that, and that's why regardless of where you're at on your creator journey, I think it's really, really important. That's the whole reason I started the channel, Nico, honestly, is like I just wanted to put out this content to say, hey, I don't care where you're at in your journey. Working with brands, working with partners is going to be a reality for you at some point, if you want it to be, right? And you have to educate yourself. So yeah, maybe you do end up hiring a manager when you get to kind of a medium tier or a larger tier or whatever, but you as a creator, it's your business, right? You have to, take a lot of ownership over the types of people that you're letting in and representing you out in the market, right? Because oftentimes, this is another really dangerous thing that can happen, is that if you partner with the wrong manager, they could be sullying your reputation as a creator by themselves being very difficult. That's happened, I can't even tell you how many times that's happened, where I have interacted with a manager of an influencer through my agency, and they were so difficult, they were so crazy, and it made us not want to work with that influencer anymore.
Ever again, even without the person.
Well, I mean, I don't know, because that person has said, oh, this is my manager, so you have to deal with them, right? So if that person is a really difficult personality, why would we bring them business, right? So I think a lot of creators don't realize that can be very toxic to their long-term career and reputation in the industry if they chain their, they attach their horse to the wrong cart, I guess, or whatever the saying is.
Yeah. And there's tons of stories of famous people getting screwed over from their managers, them stealing tons of money, and just their managers doing horrible stuff to them. So yeah, it's very important who you pick.
Absolutely.
What's your weirdest experience getting a sponsorship? What's the weirdest thing that has happened?
The weirdest thing that's happened? Gosh, I'm not sure I've ever been asked that question. Weird from the most random way we ever got a sponsorship, or the weirdest thing that ever happened during the middle of a sponsorship, or what do you mean?
Both, whatever, whatever you want to say.
I gotcha. Yeah, probably the weirdest thing that's ever happened, something that oftentimes happens to us in the middle of sponsorships, is the brand will say, hey, here, we want you to say this exact thing, this line, or this kind of, we want you to talk about the product in this very specific way. And then you do that exact thing. And then the brand comes back and they said, I know we told you to say that, but we want you to say this. right? It can be kind of infuriating as a creator, because you're just what the heck? You just told me to say this. So there's definitely situations where you have to charge them more money for that type of thing, because, they said to you, hey, you can say this, that's what we want, right? And so there's definitely situations to do that. But again, going back to this whole ideology around the partnership being in service of a longer term relationship, there are situations where we're just like, okay, yeah, it's fine, no big deal. Well, we can record a new voiceover in like 2 minutes and that's fine. And we'll make it happen for you. And that's like a really important lesson, I would say, as a creator, because, you know, creators, like a lot of them have an ego, I would say, around this stuff. And you have to understand, like, there's so many cooks in the kitchen on the brand and the agency and the advertiser side, where 5, 10, 15 people have to review the content before it can be published, right? The legal team, the brand manager, the marketing manager, the directors, the account executives, the coordinators, yada, yada, on and on and on. There's all these people, right? And so, like, yeah, the brand may have thought that you saying this particular thing was gonna be fine, but then the legal team, the lawyers got involved and they're like, oh, well, no, that could be construed as dangerous if you use the product the wrong way. And so they're the ones who say, hey, you gotta change this. And so it's easy to get mad at that. I've been there, right? I get it. But like, I've done this long enough to understand this is just part of it. This is part of working with brands, and you can't get mad about it. You just, yes, there may be situations where you have to charge them more money justifiably, but there may be situations where you just do it, right? Because you want to make, the brand happy, and maybe it's an agency and they work with lots of brands, right? And they're going to bring you more business, right? So that's something that I teach in my course, and it's not a simple kind of black and white topic, but I get it. It can be weird when that happens to you as a creator, because you're just like, what the heck? I did what you asked for.
Yeah. It's like, and sometimes, like, I don't know how to like explain this, but like they have to go to like a certain place to film it, and it's like really hard to film again, and like I can imagine it being so annoying. So what was your first sponsorship like? What was it like getting your first sponsorship?
Wow. So our very first sponsorship was actually on my wife's YouTube channel back in like 2010 or 11, I think it was. And that was one of the first times that brand had actually offered to pay us. And it was a monthly deal, actually, that they had offered. It was a Korean skincare brand. I still remember it. And they offered to pay us $700 a month. This was like 7 years ago? No. 2011, I'm like dating myself here. That's 11 years ago, right? And even now, that's a lot of money, right? But like back then, it was so much money, and we just couldn't believe it. And so it was like, several mentions a month in the YouTube channel, listing in the description box, the website, and all that stuff. And so like that was the very first moment where we realized, like, wow, this could, like, what if we could get 10 more deals like this? Like this could really be something, right? And so back in the day, 11 years ago, we definitely saw the potential. And I was not doing this full time back then. I was in medical devices. I was like totally different career. And so it really took over our lives once we realized the potential, and, doubling down, creating other channels, creating a vlog channel, creating a cooking channel, lots of different content verticals and so on. And so like we really saw the potential, but yeah, that first sponsorship absolutely blew our mind, because up to that date, we were just getting free products, right? And that way we were April, my wife was stoked about that, because she was getting a bunch of free makeup and cosmetics and stuff like that, which was the focus of her first channel. And that alone was awesome. But then once they started to pay, offer money, that was just icing on the cake.
Yeah, I can definitely imagine. Just like getting free products is amazing, and like getting paid for it is even better.
Yeah.
So while we're on the topic of like getting like products to like promote, do you think, I heard this somewhere, I have no clue where I heard it, but it was a YouTuber whose first sponsorship, he didn't get paid. He got like a free hotel room at somewhere, or something like that. He got like paid to go somewhere. Do you think it's better in that case, or like actually getting paid? Like, which would you rather take?
I mean, if you have to, I'll be the first one to admit, like, my wife and I have definitely done deals where the brand paid like all expenses of a trip, because that's pretty awesome, right? They pay your airfare, they pay your hotel or whatever.
Exactly.
So that definitely is cool and fun, and we definitely have done that even recently, because it's fun to do. But the difference is that if they are asking you to post a ton of content in addition to attending a trip or going somewhere or whatever, that's like totally different, right? Because you're posting on your channel, you're exposing your audience to, whatever the thing is of where you're traveling. So if there's like all of this laundry list of deliverables, that's, in my opinion, that's something totally different. So, if we kind of factor all that in. If it's like an opportunity where we do need to actually go somewhere, it really just kind of depends like what the ask is essentially. And if it's relatively light, where it's just like, oh, I'll post on Instagram stories and kind of document it, and then it's just like, to us, it's not a big deal. It's just like a cool trip. But if it's like, oh, YouTube video and Instagram posts and TikToks and all this stuff, then it's like, there definitely needs to be a compensation element in addition to that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. So what can we expect in the future from you? Like what type of content in general? What can we expect in the future?
Man, I'm 100% focused on sponsorships. I could talk about this topic from now until the day I die. And so like, I really have kind of focused in on this niche because there's so many things to talk about. You would think that, oh man, sponsorships, brand deals, that's such a narrow topic. But like, to me, this is like, I could talk about this. I do a live stream every single Friday talking about this topic, because it's just like, there's an infinite amount of things to talk about. And so like, what you can expect from me more is just more, strategy around brand deals and sponsorships. Obviously, I have a course called Brand Deal Wizard. It's a 4-week live course that I teach all around this topic if you really do want to go deeper in it. But the main thing for me is that I have a newsletter, a completely free newsletter that I would encourage anyone listening or watching to join. It's just creatorwizard.com/join. And I share it's a free newsletter. I share paid sponsorship opportunities every single week in the newsletter. So I have over 6,000 creators on the newsletter now. So that's like another passion project of mine. It's just like helping people get paid. And so you can just expect, more of that from me. And I'm pretty much at Creator Wizard everywhere on social media.
Everything will be in the description. Your course, your newsletter, everything will be in the description. Go follow him. Go follow his YouTube channel. Everything. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It means a lot. And I'll see you next episode of the Nicocast.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.